The time is now 7:30 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the April 26, 2023 Downers Grove Public Library Board of Trustees meeting. We can have everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We acknowledge that the Downers Grove Public Library sits on the unceded, traditional, and ancestral homelands of Native peoples. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the indigenous peoples who have been caretakers of the land throughout generations past and present. We invite you to learn more about the genocide and forced displacement by non-Native settlers and the ongoing injustices against Native peoples. Caitlin, can you proceed with roll call, please?
Trustee Doherty. Here. Trustee Humphries.
Here.
Trustee Kuntia. Here. Trustee Weaver.
Here.
Trustee Slater. Here. President Gagani.
Here. All right, on behalf of the trustees, I'd like to thank all of our visitors and thank you for your interest in the library. All right, item number 4A is the approval of minutes from March 22nd.
I will move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Can we proceed with roll call?
Trustee Doherty. Yes. Trustee Humphries.
Yes.
Trustee Kuntia.
Yes.
Trustee Weaver.
Yes.
Trustee Slater.
Yes.
President Gagani.
Yes. All right, item 5A is March 2023 financial report and April 2023 invoices.
All right, we are 25% through the year as of these end of March financials. As you can see, the fund balances are dipping as expected prior to June when we start seeing our property tax revenue come in. Our revenue is at 1.4% for the year, but I want to direct your attention to that robust interest income that we've been receiving throughout the first quarter of 2023. And then in the expense side, the Library Capital Reserve Fund is showing at 55% spent of budgeted invoices. All of the invoices for the workroom renovation project should be submitted to the board. We're hoping by the May board meeting. You will see there are some significant invoices in today's packet as well. And then our operating expenditures are at 21% right now. We're right on track in most budget lines. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll move to approve the financials as presented. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the financials as presented. Caitlin, can we proceed with the roll call?
Trustee Doherty. Yes. Trustee Humphries.
Yes.
Trustee Kuntia.
Yes.
Trustee Weaver.
Aye.
Trustee Slater.
Yes.
President Gagani.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. Item number 6 is public comment on agenda items.
Yes, thank you. My name is Laura Hoyce. Agenda item number 9, it references the revisions to the bylaws. At last month's meeting, this board discussed amending the Downers Grove Public Library's bylaws and put Trustee Marty Slatic in charge of preparing an outline and proposed changes. The library's current bylaws require board members to avoid situations in which your personal interest might be served, and to disqualify yourself whenever the appearance of a conflict of interest exists. Recognizing that the board members hold positions of public trust, you are expected, per the bylaws, to conduct yourselves according to the highest ethical standards and to maintain truth, integrity, and honor. As a resident and a taxpayer of Downers Grove, I will expect these provisions to remain in the revised bylaws, and I ask this board to provide ample advance notice of the proposed changes to the bylaws before proceeding to vote. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Hankin. I'm a resident of Downers Grove.
And I'd like to draw your attention to the Discovery magazine that we all get in our mailboxes. And on the last page, there's a little carve-out which talks about the indigenous lands. And through the survey that's going on with the library right now, I think there are like 2,000 people that completed the survey. You're going to get thousands of gold stars. Okay, so part of that is probably understood. And the reason for that is that the library is an extremely welcoming community. They acknowledge the Native Americans like they do on the back of the magazine. Also acknowledge the LGBT community. Acknowledge African Americans, Asians, Hispanic, homeless. And by acknowledging, we begin to show empathy and understanding and begin developing a dialogue. All of these areas cumulatively, together with the programs, the staff, all of the things that occur here at the library, make it a welcoming community. However, I have seen persons who have come to these meetings and have begun to question about certain literature, history, the way it's taught, and so forth. Also, there is a movement larger where one state, Missouri, for example, has just taken the libraries out of their total state budget until they can determine what books go on the shelves. For me, that becomes very personal because, as you may know, I was born in post-World War II Germany, and the burning of books was something that was there. Non-white persons in the Downers Grove community have commented to me that at times they don't feel Downers Grove is a very welcoming community. So here's my question for the board. My question is, how can I, as an individual, or how can we, as a larger group, be supportive of the library so that your welcoming community extends beyond these walls and into areas that the community is involved with? And I leave you with that question. Thank you.
Okay, that was not exactly an agenda item, so I just want to go back real quick. Is there any other comments for the agenda items?
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Any other agenda item comments? Okay, and then any other, so item number 7, public comment on any other library business.
I was at the focus group last night, and I just wanted to give you some feedback. I thought you did an outstanding job, so it's not too big. They facilitated a discussion, but they didn't lead us to any specific points to say. I thought they did a great job of really decomposing the services and the role of the library in the community here, so that we make sure we covered all these different topics. And they're very attentive and actively listening and taking things down. I was very pleasantly surprised at how good the session was. So I just want to let you know that you did a great job in picking them, and I think it's going well. I was also very happy to hear this room was full. A lot of people here, everybody talking about how much they love the library as a byproduct of those discussions. So great job on what you're doing, and very good job on the strategy.
Thanks for volunteering your time for that.
Okay. In 2 of the last meetings, there's been mention of a personnel matter and the hiring of an attorney. I would like an update each month. I know you can't talk about any of the details because it's a personnel matter, but I'd like an update every month as to where that case is going. Is it in investigation? Is it in litigation? Is it in negotiation? Where does it stand? An update every month on that case. Thank you.
Hi there, Laura Temple. During this Library Appreciation Week, I'd like to say how much I appreciate you. Being on the board is an extensive commitment, and I'm grateful to each of you for serving in Downers Grove this way. Thank you, Julie, for your strong and visionary leadership. I am really grateful that you are steering the ship. And finally, after having attended several of these meetings, I have learned about all the different departments and people that go into making this place run, and I'm, just extremely grateful for all that work, for everyone who works here, and they make this library just an essential part of the fabric of our community. So I hope you feel appreciated because you are. Thank you.
Hello again, I'm Laura Hoyce. I'd like to address the issue that I brought up at November's board meeting, wherein I urged this board to fire the library's diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, RGW. I was in this room earlier today for the senior meeting where there was various discussion about great things about the library's facilities and discussion about people's various experiences. And one of my colleagues, who is usually disagrees with me, agreed that the RGW consulting report is racist, which came as a surprise to me. And I think that when I point up the issues, again, which I will remind you tonight what I said in November, that is the way the library has gone. Unfortunately, the library for the past 3 years has accepted RGW's recommendations for a strategic plan. And it's really disappointing to me and many residents who would certainly not have gone down that path. So why do I say this? By way of reminder, RGW had pushed for radical left changes to our library's culture and policies in ways that violate the Constitution, civil rights laws, local library law, and the Downers Grove Public Library's current bylaws. RGW had spent 6 months in 2020, starting in March of 2020, discovering that Downers Grove Public Library was systemically racist. While this was not true, I do not believe that our community is racist at all. The library director and a majority of this board agreed that that was true and accepted RGW's promotion of the idea that we should deeply integrate DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to spur redistribution of power, wealth, access, and privilege to favor the allegedly oppressed, historically marginalized people, and urged Downers Grove Public Library to take from the oppressors, indicated as white people, and give to the oppressed. RGW said residents do not have the right to expect taxpayer money to be spent according to what they want in our library. They should not have this power and privilege. And taxpayers don't deserve to have library resources aligned to their value system. Instead, white-centered patrons must be forced to embrace the interest of neglected, historically marginalized individuals. Very disappointing. This is still on the website in the RGW report. I wish more people would read it to understand where we're coming from. We're not trying to be unfair here. We're just saying, look, this is a great community. This is a caring, charitable, kind, wonderful community. We've lived here for 40 years. I and the people here, I wish that we'd get past this categorization of people by skin color. Because until you know who I am as a person, until you had a chance to talk to me and find out where I'm coming from, let's not put up barriers that are based on skin color. And that's exactly what this library has done by accepting this plan. RGW said our library must be DEI-centered, not a neutral institution. Not a neutral institution means that you're prioritizing certain classes of people, perhaps people of color, perhaps people of certain sexual orientation. No, that's not right, because you're here to serve the whole community. All right? So RGW attacked the American history, tradition, meritocracy, and rejected our foundation of equal rights under the law. A lot of people in our community think equity is a good thing because they think equity means equality. It is the opposite of equality. It is giving preference to certain categories of people. That's what's happening in our schools as well. Preference is being given to minorities. White students are not being given the opportunities and Everything is getting dumbed down. So, it's tough to take. I and others in November demanded the return of $86,000 in tax dollars that this board had spent on RGW Consulting. This is, in my opinion, harmful to the community, divisive, and a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. Here is today's update for all of the folks here that are honest, hardworking, high tax-paying residents. We all got to know this. For the period from March 3rd, 2020 through the present, Downers Grove Public Library has paid a whopping $157,367 to RGW Consulting's Rashida Graham Washington for her anti-racist consulting and training for the staff. Her monthly pay has ranged from $3,300 a month to over $7,000 a month, $7,083 per month. RGW's $45,000 year-long work plan fee, which required a non-refundable cash deposit of $22,500 that was paid in a lump sum by we the taxpayers here. That yearly plan commenced April 1st, 2022 and ended March 31st, 2023. So I question, are we going to continue to use RGW Consulting, or can we finally end this? She is making a whopping amount of money, and she has the same agreement with numerous libraries in the area that have the same deal going. Can you imagine how much her monthly take-home is, or RGW? But she is the principal, and she is the one that has invited us to join in the anti-racism effort, which is really divisive and harming our community. Especially when you consider that so many other libraries are following the same program. I'm thinking, okay, in her correspondence, she says that RGW can be emailed to her personal email address. Okay, unusual. And our website still states to this day that the Equity Strategic Plan is structured on the 4 quadrants of racism. The plan was created by the library's Equity Advisory Team, composed of staff members and Downers Grove community members, led by RGW Consulting. This plan was approved by this board April 27, 2022, exactly 1 year ago. What is the problem with this? Well, as I've said, the library's approval of this the Equity Strategic Plan itself is racist. Unfortunately, the board accepted the plan and promoted policies that RGW recommended, and it divides our community. Black, white, Hispanic. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why can't we unite and work together and care about each other? The basis should be love, not skin color. That's what brings us together. So please, I ask you, and I've got a recent email, as recent as February 27th, Director Julie Milbeck, in an email referenced continuing with the resource targeted programming and staff training provided by Equity Consultant RGW. So it's continuing even in the event there's pushback. And I would be one of the people that's saying, I'm pushing back against this because this is just fundamentally not right, all right? As we are dependent on this work being done by our BIPOC staff members, BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Please know that I am by no means shying away from our DEI efforts. In fact, I'm doing the opposite. Julie, our director, is doing the opposite. She's supporting the continuation of this racist plan. Please, stop forcing racial division in our library and just continue it. This library
5 minutes.
recently declined a request to do a book reading for children that was Christian-based, and I'm not saying it needs to be just Christian, but it was declined because it's not consistent with the strategic plan. So does this library truly serve the entire community and every facet of it? And I'm not saying just Christian, I'm saying other religions as well. It should serve everyone. So yes, I am coming up on perhaps too much time, but I would caution
I
you.
yield my time to her.
I would caution you. Look at what happened in the news last week with Bud Light. Bud Light lost $6.5 billion in stock value. In just a few days, its sales dropped 17% and its volume dropped 21%. This related to the ongoing boycott of Bud Light following the company's decision to partner with transgender social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney, a biological male who identifies as female. We the people think Bud Light fans know the honest-to-God truth. Dylan Mulvaney was born male, and he does not become female by dressing like a woman and posting on social media.
Absolutely.
Dylan Mulvaney brought disaster to the Bud Light Company. Please do not bring disaster to our community by continuing down this road. Acknowledge, please, that this plan is racist and tell the truth. That's all we're asking. Thank you.
Other public comments on other library business? All right.
Thank you for continuing to do the DEI work that you do. Thank you for continuing to do the DEI work that you do. It is incredibly, deeply meaningful to me and so many people in Downers Grove, and the variety of people that come here. And I really appreciate that that you have this consultant that has been working with you and that he's been doing all the deep, difficult work. So thank you.
All right, number 8, new business, of which we do not have any. So we'll move on to number 9, unfinished business, which is our bylaws update. Marty, do you want to take the floor?
The new set of bylaws that I did several drafts for myself and then swapped them. I exchanged some ideas and I did get feedback from most of the other trustees. I've gotten some more feedback this evening, so what we've got in front of us now, I don't see as the final version. And yes, the ethics thing is in it. Ethics conflict of interest. Just to reiterate for the people who are attending the meeting, the process for this requires us to publish these before we do a final vote on them. We have to discuss them at least one meeting. They would be, however many meetings after that it takes. Each draft would be posted before our public discussion, so you will have an opportunity to see them. I've had some suggestions tonight. Do you want me to just go through quickly what it looks like if you've all gotten in front of them? I've had some feedback both from the other trustees and from staff on some ways to tweak it. Start at the top. The name of the organization is the Board of Trustees of the Downers Grove Public Library. A little less.
No controversy there.
Yeah, no controversy there. The only controversy there was whether we should put Illinois after Downers Grove. Purpose, I don't think anybody had any problems with. It's pretty generic.
One question.
Yeah.
It says the purpose is to ensure general oversight, no issue there, of adequate funding. Is it our responsibility to ensure adequate funding, or is it our responsibility to ensure proper fiscal?
Actually, under the statute, it says that's one of our jobs, and I think what they're really talking about there is working with the staff on whatever lobbying there is to be done with the village and the state and anybody else that would be giving us money.
Well,
but yes, it is one of our responsibilities.
Generally, the intent.
You get what I'm getting at? Like,
yes.
it's actually the village's responsibility to make sure we're funded.
The kind of intent, the way that's generally interpreted among libraries, is that you as the board kind of decide on what our service goals and priorities are, like our strategic plan. And then the adequate funding is ensuring that there is adequate funding for the library to meet those goals. And
So
if there
tax
is
levy.
not, to advocate for a change in that funding level, whatever that means to our organization, because there are so many different ways that libraries are organized in the
So
state
we
of
do
Illinois.
have a responsibility for facilitating funding on occasion. That was the intent there.
All right.
Okay?
Good.
Article 3, governance. My editor over here told me I used the wrong word on the last sentence, but I've also had a suggestion that we simply take out the last sentence, that it's really kind of redundant with all of the statutory references. And I don't have a problem with that. The idea of this was to cut these down to a readable length, so.
Well, the sentence, it reads, the board ascribes to the American and Illinois Library Association standards and the American Library Association Bill of Rights. I personally would prefer to leave that in because, among other things, I mean, the statute says that we have to be members of the American Library Association and the Illinois Library Association.
Yeah.
And I think the implication was there that I took issue with the word ascribes,
Yeah.
which I need help maybe finding a different word for that, but I heard subscribes to or acknowledges or.
Dave, I can follow up on this, but where in the statute does it require subordination to the American and Illinois Library Association?
It's under this top, the part about standards. It's really about the
Is it
library
legislated, though?
operation.
It requires us to be members of
Okay.
Yeah.
and ascribe, well, not ascribe.
Well,
where is
maybe,
it?
maybe what we.
I can read it, but
Yeah, where do you, yeah.
to join the public library as a member, this is under one of the powers and duties of boards. To join the public library as a member and to join the library trustees as members of the Illinois Library Association and the American Library Association, nonprofit, non-political 501c3 associations as designated by the federal IRS, having the purpose of library development and librarianship to provide for the payment of the dues, fees, and assessments and set by, and for the by providing and disseminating information and research services, employing personnel, and doing any or all acts for the purpose of improving library development.
I read that, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's,
I read that as authorizing us to do that, but not requiring us to do that. Is that right?
it's listed under powers
It's
and duties,
powers
and
and
it says
duties.
to join.
Yeah, so I think it,
I believe that's a requirement.
Any insight there, Julie?
It can be read either way. The one thing that I will say is that in order to qualify for state grants at this point, as you all know, our Illinois Public Library per capita grant, the Illinois Public Library standards are that is what that per capita grant is based on. And also there is legislation currently moving through the Illinois legislature that would require all libraries in Illinois to
in effect,
pass
to follow the bill of
to
the
pass
Bill of
language
Rights,
that
yeah.
follows the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights in order to qualify for any state grants.
And that's why I added the Library Bill of Rights here to get a jump start on what's coming down, because even if it doesn't pass this session, Alexei Janulius will probably issue an order on it himself.
In which case, we don't need it in our bylaws.
Well,
I would prefer to leave it in, but I would like to change the word ascribe, which means attribute to, and I don't think.
do you want me to play with the wording and get it back out to you? I don't think we're going to be voting
No,
on
we're not going to
this
vote this
tonight.
I mean, acknowledge would be a more neutral
Yeah.
word if you prefer. I'd like to sort of subscribe to, but
It
if
sounds
that's
like
too-
we need to
if
leave
that's
some
too
reference
strong.
to it in.
I want to be transparent about my feelings about this. Like, there are elements of the ALA standards and the Library Bill of Rights that I am 100% supportive of, but there are standards and elements of those organizations that are not without controversy.
Oh,
And I don't want to put
absolutely
anything in
not.
our bylaws that subordinates us to those.
Well,
Well, this
statutorily, we already are.
specifically refers to
That I
the
agree
Library Association standards and the ALA Bill of Rights. It's not everything they do, it's two
Yeah, it's
particular
very specific,
documents
yeah.
that, as long as I've been on the
Yeah.
board here, they,
So that means by putting it in
kinda
the
swear to
bylaws,
those.
we are accepting in totality the standards and the Bill of Rights. Which again, I don't have any problem with the Bill of Rights, but there are elements of the standards that I'm not supportive of including, making us subordinate to. But we can follow up.
Let me rework that section.
how about the word acknowledge? Would that,
Yeah.
Acknowledge?
I'm happy to acknowledge them.
is that?
I think we should also take a look at what the bill moving through the
I have.
legislature
Yeah,
asks
yeah.
for, and see
That would
what,
be
if
smart.
there is a word that they use that
Sure.
might be
Yeah.
more palatable to all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Let's-
calling and ask her, she wrote it. Okay, so the next section that I'd like to see some work on, that I got some feedback since our meeting, is in Section 2, responsibilities of the board.
Maureen, before you move on to section 2, I have
Yeah.
I have one.
point of order on section 1B.
Yeah,
It says the training requirements prior to the first meeting. I thought the OMA certification window was broader than that.
Oh, it's 60 days, I believe.
it just
Six
says
days.
should complete, you know, it's not like
Yeah.
must, just should.
Sir, yeah.
Should we align that to, because, I mean, I was
With it.
appointed and had 2 weeks before the first meeting.
Yeah.
I would have been able to get through that.
Yeah, I had like a week.
So,
Yeah.
should we
That's
make
why
that-
it says should.
Should we make that align with the,
Put in the 60 days.
yeah?
I had a question.
Instead of before the first meeting, within 60 days after appointment.
Well, and for the certification and training requirements, I really would like to attempt to have folks do their orientation before their first meeting, if possible.
I just think
We've
people
always-
voting should know
Yes.
what our library's foundations are. I mean, I think that if you're gonna vote, you should understand us.
Yeah.
I had a question in that section as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is the certification?
The Open Meetings Act, online training actually gives you a certificate.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
It is a
It's like,
Okay.
you don't,
You
it's like, that was
You only
55
have to
years
do
ago.
it.
I don't remember anymore.
Okay, I did this so long ago.
That's why I kind of threw in the kitchen
Okay.
sink there, because some of them actually are considered certs for whatever
All right,
reason.
but I had a question about 1C there,
Okay,
under vacancies. Vacancies occur when a term ends without a person having been reappointed or another person being appointed in their place. I guess I'm wondering what the word vacancy means exactly, because under our practice, when a board member's term ends, they remain on the board until replaced. And the way I read this, that isn't the case.
Well, it hasn't been the
We-
case.
it hasn't been the
We've
case.
had-
We've had two
We've been down to like
vacancies.
4 trustees at a certain point waiting for.
which
Well,
was
that's-
one of the reasons we wanted
Well,
to tweak it so that we encourage quick
I
appointments.
Let me finish. I definitely want to encourage the village to fill the spaces when they are supposed to. But if they don't, is it not our, well, I know it's been our practice, are we going to say as soon as the term's in, we have to leave? Or do we continue until replaced?
I think it's always been.
And in that case, does a vacancy
Yeah.
really exist or not?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's-
the practice and the way our current bylaws reads is you either resign or serve until replaced.
I realize if you
So-
resign or if you move out of town or something,
Yes,
you're no
yeah.
longer qualified and you have to resign.
Yeah.
Or leave. But if your term is simply up, whether or not you've asked to be reappointed, do you have to resign or do you have to leave?
You don't. You don't,
Well,
and
but-
they've served.
Well, maybe that when
That's
the
an odd
trustee.
I think maybe the wording's a little odd here, because that has been our past practice, and it has actually been, really, that is the way that we have functioned in my tenure here, and I think for as long as Dave
And
can
because I
probably
knew,
remember.
I'm kind of starting from scratch on
Is
this.
that your term ends, but you keep going until the mayor gets around to appointing someone.
And I think stating that a vacancy occurs when the term ends.
Well, what is it? This is weird, because what is a term? It's a 6-year term.
It's a
It
6-year
ends.
term, yeah.
And it expires on a certain date,
Right,
according
so
to the
then
law.
you shouldn't go beyond the term.
What?
And
Yeah, the
then you
term is
shouldn't-
legally, that
Yeah.
term is up.
Right.
It's a vacancy.
Yeah.
The idea of someone being able to continue really indefinitely while
Well-
the village gets its act together is
I don't think
absurd.
that passes legal muster.
I don't think it does either. You're just kind of sitting there voting and everything, and you really don't have any authority anymore. You haven't been reappointed.
Yeah.
I can play around with the wording a little bit
I mean-
on it. I can take out the thing, well, trustee resigns, or,
Well, the law says that it's a 6-year term. It doesn't really specify when the term begins or ends, but it does say 6
It
years.
ends at the end of 6 years.
But it doesn't,
But we know what month all of our terms come
Yeah.
up.
I'm just pointing out that
Yeah.
discrepancy, and
Yeah.
if
Well,
we're going to change the practice, that's fine.
I think we need to, because I don't think the practice as it apparently has been the
Beyond your
last
term.
few years, as Bill said, would pass legal muster.
Well,
But,
and
you know,
You've
that's-
got unappointed people in the.
I don't know of anyone that's gone beyond their term. If their 6-year term, I don't know that anyone has stayed on, and I'm trying to remember the.
Well, I was
the
for
most
over a year
recent.
the last time. So I was
There we go.
illegal for a year.
Yeah, we always knew that.
There you go. Okay.
So it has happened, and theoretically, if the village did not make appointments for a couple of years, which they might not,
If you're not.
we could fall below our quorum, and we'd have
Yeah.
to disband.
Well, they would have to,
That'd be a problem.
if
Well,
they're
what if
active,
they-
it would be a
I don't
problem.
think you can just stay on past your 6-year term just because.
Because it's so much fun to give a library meetings.
Okay, so clearly the language in this point is not clear enough for at least even us who are part of this room
Okay.
to understand. So the language itself needs to be clear enough. I agree that it probably should be when you're done, you're done. If only because the underlying problem here that we're trying to solve with bylaws, which is not gonna probably actually solve the problem, is getting the village to appoint people on a timely way.
Yeah.
And that's,
No matter what we put in the bylaws is not gonna change that, but it will change our own practice.
and it could nudge them a little if they realize we're
Potentially,
risk
and
of
they'll make
not
it all
having a.
illegal, which
Yeah.
is what we want.
Mechanically, it's a little sticky also, because their practice has been to make appointments approximately a certain time of the year, and our practice has been to install them immediately after appointed. And then they serve for 6 years, which means the village would have to appoint their replacement the same week, 6 years later. And so maybe there needs to be
Well,
a fixed date, and the
but-
village makes the appointment before that date, effective a certain date or something.
but we can't dictate to the village what the village does.
That's the reason we've been
That's,
serving
I
until
mean,
replaced.
this is not gonna cover every contingency.
If I'm not mistaken, the village makes appointments with a start date. They make an appointment as of a date.
Yeah. And if that means there's a
Right.
gap of a few weeks or something, well, so be it, but.
So in theory, if someone knows that their term is gonna expire 6 months before that happens,
was
they
already
let
agreed
the
on.
village know.
Yeah.
I
And that
I have no
process, in
problem with
theory.
saying the term ends at the end of 6 years. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah,
And-
well, that's
I
what
think that
it's-
needs to be the case. 'Cause
Yeah.
And
we've had
if
too
we
many-
want it to be that, then
Yeah.
let's say it. And let's make sure the village understands that as well. Okay.
We have some more work to do on section 2, responsibilities. It's too wordy. Still too wordy. I've had a suggestion to, we said keep up to date, comply with legal and ethical requirements and complete required training and certification, but that the standards and best practices language is really more of a library thing than a board thing. So that phrase can come out. And that also the professional development piece of it is kind of redundant if we're talking about training and certification and all that too, so that can come out.
I also had a question about number 2, not that Swapna or any president that I know would do this, but it says as required unless excused by the president. Would the president choose not to excuse?
Probably not, but
Hunting.
I know, right?
you
No,
know.
you cannot for your kids.
How friendly are you with the president? I don't know.
Didn't the last bylaws have some standard, or maybe this is in the ILCS, on the number of meetings in a year that constitute a dereliction of duty?
That is
Like
actually
half the
in
meetings or
the,
something?
that's actually in the library district section, because
Yeah.
the elected officials who miss a year's worth of meetings can be removed. Because you are an appointed board, you can miss a year's worth of meetings and still be on this board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the village
Because
doesn't.
then it would
Shared
be
law
up,
doesn't
yeah.
stipulate that.
Yep.
So that's why that was different. And this, if somebody is going to be out of town or sick or something, I mean, this really is just formalizing what we do anyway. We call the chair, call Julie and say, I can't make that meeting. Well,
I mean, maybe there should, I guess what I'm getting at is maybe there should be a standard in our bylaws on the number of meetings required to attend. Minimum requirement. It's a minor point.
something.
I thought,
Well,
what if Swapna
something
doesn't
to
want to
consider.
excuse me? Then what do I do?
We could,
And you're in a
although,
different, and you're out of the
No, but in
country.
serious, it's like, what if,
Well-
take the personalities out of the equation.
If
Suppose
you-
someday there's a president who has an issue, has a personal issue with one of the board members, and they have to miss a meeting, and the president doesn't excuse that person, now you violated a responsibility, and there's a subsequent bylaw that says you can be removed.
Well, section
You know what I
E
mean?
is
Right.
that bylaw that says if you don't fulfill your responsibilities, the board can recommend that you be removed.
I just think this all kind of flows back to the accountability resting with the village council to handle appointees and removals. If they become aware that somebody's blowing off meetings,
They're gonna do
they
it.
should remove somebody.
And that's why I put in section E that the board may recommend removal if we, and I put that in based on
and that's important.
a lot of history, to make it clear that we do have the authority if we see something really outrageous happening to make a recommendation. Doesn't mean the
So
council's
maybe
going
it's
to do
big,
it.
but yeah.
But I think that given some of the things that have happened over the last, 30 years, I go back a ways with some of this stuff. I was trying to clarify the distinction between the role of the board and the role of the council. The old
Right.
bylaws had everything conflated.
I like section E, and I would be willing and suggest actually that number 2 that Bill was referring to, we change that to something like unless
You need a-
unless the president is notified or something like
Yeah, sure,
that, as opposed to excused.
Oh,
I think it's
okay.
important
I like that.
that we notify, because we
Yeah.
may find out that we're not gonna have a quorum.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
important that
okay, yeah,
the,
that's-
it's important the president and the director know.
I like that, yeah, that
Okay.
that it's not as, I have to ask permission to go visit my mom or something, yeah.
And then, yeah, section C, which I think covers something Laura was talking about and some others, is
Yeah.
good, to avoid conflicts of interest and make disclosures as necessary, and
To
we
avoid
have-
the appearance of
we have done
impropriety,
that.
yeah.
To avoid appearance of impropriety, to speak about library issues in their official capacity only when so assigned, distinguishing their personal opinions. I think that's very important, and so I like this.
I didn't catch that latter.
That's the-
Item C.
Yeah,
Item
I
C.
see it now.
Yeah,
What is,
that
to
was
speak
in the
about the
former
library
bylaws.
issues in their official capacity? Does that
Only
mean
when
as
so
of-
assigned. In other words, if you're gonna go speak to the Rotary Club because they want a board member to speak, you're speaking on behalf of the library. If you wanna post something on your Facebook page, you're speaking as yourself, and we need to make sure that people understand that, because there are certain things that may appear that you're taking an official position when really it's just your personal opinion.
Then I think we should be more precise with the wording there. If you're speaking on behalf of the library writ large, that's true, but if
On behalf of the
as a
library.
board member, like I had a lot of problems with the last set of bylaws and what I refer to lovingly as the institutionalized gag order. As a board member, I have the right to communicate with the community on library issues.
Oh, absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
So I think the wording in here is not clear enough.
Okay, and I can work on the wording to make it clearer. I think it really is part of the ethics thing that
Yeah.
when speaking on library issues,
Like, I'm not gonna, I think we need to restrict a random board member from calling a press conference.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
on behalf of the library.
Oh,
Peace.
damn, you're gonna have to
I'm
cancel
good.
my press
I'm good
conference.
with that.
I think-
However,
I think
the way
this-
the last set of bylaws read, it would have been a
Oh.
violation of the bylaws for me to say anything about anything
well, the
controversial.
way the last bylaws read, everything any one of us did was a violation of the First Amendment on so many
Well,
grounds, so.
My understanding of what they were trying to say, and I think I agree with you, is that we can speak as long as we say it is our personal opinion. We can say just about anything we want to anybody we want.
Yeah.
But I'll
As
go
long
one
as
step
you-
further.
as-
It's not only my personal opinion, it's my opinion as a board member.
As long as you identify
individual.
yourself as a board member, and this is my personal experience.
In other words, as you.
But you are not speaking for the board.
And that's what you just said, on behalf of the library
Right.
or the board,
Right.
and that's where the distinction
Right.
is, and that can be tweaked. Not a problem at all.
In E, the board recommended removal. I kind of bristle at any subjectivity in that. So conduct detrimental, who defines conduct detrimental?
Well, we would as a board.
Failure to fulfill the duties of the office, that's cut and dry. Right? We can define the duties.
Well,
Conduct detrimental can be
see,
anything.
that decision is made by the village council.
Well,
We can decide something that is detrimental to the library and make a recommendation to the village council. We're not removing the person. We're simply making a recommendation, and I think we can decide what's detrimental. Village council can decide whether they're violating
I mean,
the duties of the office.
I can see some situations coming up, highly hypothetical, but that's what lawyers do, where if someone who's on the board has just been, indicted under RICO,
Sure.
they're innocent until proven guilty, but at some point, is the fact that that person is still on the library board meeting and refuses to resign something that we might want to take action on?
Well,
Yeah,
we
You know,
can't-
those
the
are the
village
kind
would
of-
take
But
action.
we can't take action.
No,
We
we
can
can
make
recommend.
recommendations.
Right, and that's what I was trying, the old bylaws conflated a lot of the stuff between what the board could do and what the village could do, and also conflated a great deal of stuff between the board and the library director and staff. I took all of that stuff out except for a
Why?
brief reference to us hiring the director.
Why don't we make this thing consistent and refer back to C as defined by the provisions in C?
Well, C talks only about conflicts of interest and
No, it doesn't.
Well, it's general
Primary.
ethics, yeah.
generalities.
Appearance of
Accordance
impropriety.
for positions as public officials and community, well, I don't know, maybe that says it.
Then add to C. I just don't want to leave anything that's completely subjective in here. I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, what we could do here,
You mean conduct detrimental to the board, is what you're.
Defines that.
yeah,
Well,
we
can
could
revise
just,
it.
we could just say the board may recommend removal of a trustee to the village council by roll call vote. We don't have to spell it out at all.
Sure.
I like that.
I like
That's
that too.
okay.
Just,
That's good.
you know, and then,
Done.
Yeah, done. Move forward.
um, I think that's all I had.
Under D, develop policies and procedures. Is procedures part of governance? Or am I getting too picky there? Policy, I understand.
Well,
It does state procedures of board.
for the board.
Business, so
Fine.
it's
Yeah.
your
Okay.
own procedures,
Yeah,
Okay,
not
done.
library procedures.
Like-
Done.
Did-
Who posts the minutes and.
You're
you know,
right. I
so-
should have read closer. There's a typo in 5, section 3.
Well, I'm sorry, I have to go back to this
Oh, I'm sorry.
removal issue.
Which
That-
one?
Just putting it at the end of, it can be, anybody can, for any reason, the board may recommend removal of a trustee by roll call vote for any reason, is too far in the other direction.
Too far in the other
This should be,
direction.
if you don't fulfill the duties of your role, then that should be the framework for the board recommending removal. There needs to be some parameters around it.
Well, we can just say for failure to fulfill the duties of the office, and then if there's some, or what if we say, or something, or like, well, I can't say
Well, the
misconduct.
duties of the office in the law are a full page of fine print.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
So,
it's the law, right? So that ties it back to the law. And it holds us accountable to the law.
so you want to
defines
just
law.
end it at roll call vote?
No, I think for failure to
failure
fulfill
to
the.
For failure to
duties of
fulfill the
office.
duties of the office, and
Yeah.
that, you know, in the event that there was some ghastly thing that happened to someone,
Then I think the village council will take care
the
of it.
council would probably take care of it anyway. I mean, that doesn't say we can't recommend it for some other reason too. And when you're talking about, you know, your ethical responsibility to be a face of the library, you know, if you've just been convicted of some heinous crime, that is failure in your duty too. You can do all kinds
If we want to be deliberate about it, we can put something in C around, you know, illegal conduct in addition to unethical conduct. Because
Then we
that
would have to
covers-
wait till the jury came back if
That's-
somebody was,
Well, that's
That's
due
getting too
process.
obvious.
yeah, so we're probably better off leaving it fairly general.
I'm willing to put a period after duties of the office.
Me too.
Okay.
A sincere question, removal of an officer except for the treasurer, what's the background on that?
Oh, the treasurer is actually the
Village.
treasurer of the village of Downers Grove is the treasurer of the library.
Got
We
it.
don't
So
vote
we
for
don't
that.
have
The
the
village,
authority.
the village acts as our
We don't have the
treasurer,
power.
which also, by the way, gets us out of having to have a treasurer's
Yeah.
bond
Yeah.
separate from the village's treasurer's bond, because the village bonds the treasurer and their overall revenue,
Yeah.
so.
It saves us money, you should like that.
Love it.
Where's the
My
office?
only, this is more of an observation, there's a bunch of stuff in Article 6 covering meetings that overlaps with what's covered by OMA, and I didn't know whether we were trying to avoid double maintenance and overlap with other.
I understand that those are also covered under the Open Meetings Act. My idea of including that in this section was because these are the bylaws the public sees, and this gives the public notice of exactly how we're going about the meetings
Yeah, I have no problem with
without,
putting them in.
you know, without them having to go look up the OMA.
What
I just
section
wanted
are
to
you
point that
on?
out.
Section 1, regular meetings.
Yeah, regular meetings, section 1 of
Okay.
regular meetings.
Okay, I have a comment on 1A, can
Yeah.
you jump in? Do we need to be so specific in the bylaws as to say we meet on the fourth Wednesday of every month? So we have to change the bylaws if we change our meeting?
It's actually,
Okay.
yeah.
In that case, I would say that in the second line of A, we sometimes reschedule a meeting, we don't just skip one. If we find we can't get a quorum together on a regular time,
Like
we
the
move
spring
it up
break
3
one.
days
Yeah,
or
spring break
something
one,
like that.
yeah.
So instead of
Spring break
skip, say
meeting,
reschedule or add a meeting?
Skip or reschedule, maybe, something
Okay.
like that. Or add a special.
Yeah, I
meeting.
mean, the skip is in there because
Yeah, the
traditionally
reschedule
you
is
do
the
that
one
around the
that's
holiday
missing,
time,
because
yeah.
sometimes we
Okay.
just move it,
Okay,
okay? And then on section C, and I've often wondered this, and I've combed through Robert's rules and so forth on this. It says here that 4 trustees shall constitute a quorum.
That's a
and we have always stuck to that.
that's statutory.
Well,
It's in the Library
Yes.
Act.
Yeah.
It
We got
specifically
no
says
wiggle
you got a
room on
board
that
of
one.
6 and 4 is a quorum.
but what if you don't have a board of 6, is my
Doesn't
question.
Doesn't matter. I read
It's
this.
still
Remember, that's why, like, when we were down to 4, we're like,
Because-
can everyone come?
I know our practice has been, but
Yeah.
apparently we've got a legal opinion though that
Yeah,
it's 4 period.
It's
and
very specific in
That's
the
fine, as long as
statute.
we do, then that's
Yeah.
fine.
So I think we dismantled some because
We did.
yeah, but that was also during COVID. so
Um,
it's all blurred.
Then in section 2, under meetings, the remote participation thing.
Yeah.
I really like what is written here, except I'd add one minor thing to it, but
Okay.
that has not been the village practice. The village practice and the recommendations of the village attorney to the library board have been that remote members can participate, but they cannot be part of a quorum,
Yes, and that's true.
for example, but that's not what this says.
No, I don't know, I didn't understand,
And
in
I
the old
don't-
bylaws, it said can participate fully,
And
but can't vote, well,
If-
that's not participating fully.
You can participate fully, but you don't count toward quorum.
See,
You can actually vote according to OMA, you can vote if you're participating remotely, if there is a physical
If there's 4
quorum
physical.
in the room at the time.
Okay, that's in the ONA, the
Okay,
OMA. Okay, I don't have a copy of that handy, so then that answers my question.
Yes.
Because it's not in the library.
Unless we're under an emergency order and then
well, and that's
all
what this
bets are
says,
off. Yes.
basically, yeah,
Yes.
I mean, because the,
Yeah.
But,
I'm trying
Yes,
to cover stuff that we now know because of what happened with
Well-
Yeah.
COVID.
And
Yeah.
I think what you wrote, Marty, does cover what
Okay.
the law says, yes.
Okay.
So,
but I think if OMA requires that it not be part of the quorum, I think we probably ought to state that, because this implies something different. This implies that any member can participate remotely, period.
Well,
And
if we say individual trustees may participate remotely at any meeting if approved by the president for good cause, provided that a quorum of 4 is present physically.
Yep.
yeah.
Now, is that in the Open Meetings Act now, or was that only a temporary emergency provision?
That is not specifically
It
in the
is.
OMA, but,
I'm asking Julie just a
Oh,
second,
okay.
because I don't,
I don't remember if it's in the Open Meetings Act.
well, it's in some legislation.
It's somewhere in the statutes.
Because,
That you have to have the physical quorum is required.
well,
You can make rules, you can have people participate remotely if there is a physical quorum present.
Okay.
And that predated
that's not my
all the
question.
COVID
Yeah.
rules, and it's still there that way.
My question is, if we have a full remote meeting because of pandemic or something, that was only permitted due to special exceptions being made which are no longer in effect? Is that
They
true?
aren't right now,
Yes.
but I've provided for them in future.
Yeah, but
That-
this should state that there has to be a physical quorum present unless
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what that first
A
sentence
special
about
provision
has
public
been made by the
health,
legislature.
public safety, or other public emergency.
Right, and then the last sentence, individual trustees may participate remotely, blah, 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 provided that a quorum is present in person.
Yeah.
fine, and that's,
Yes.
Okay.
and in a disaster situation, that one goes up.
That goes out to, yeah,
Okay,
well,
fine.
but the disaster situation is covered in the first part, saying if there was public safety or public health or whatever emergency.
Yeah, but we don't determine what a
No.
public health emergency is. Okay,
No.
that's clear.
That's why it says we consult with everybody and their uncle to figure it out.
The other issue I had was in section 5, where it refers to executive session. Doesn't statute somewhere require certain very specific things where executive session is allowed? This
Yeah.
sounds a little too general for that.
Well, we've said above that we're following OMA, and that would be, is that where you were talking
Yeah.
about putting
That's-
something about exceptions to
About
the
the OMA
OMA?
exceptions, yes.
Okay,
I think we should.
That was the comment I had too.
all right.
Okay, I think we should list the exceptions.
Or at least refer to
We can
the
refer to
exceptions.
them.
refer to them, because
Yeah.
whenever we have a
Designated by.
motion establishing an executive session, we have to include one of the statutory.
Okay, so I will
exceptions.
re-reference OMA exceptions then in section 5.
Okay. That's all I have.
My last comment is to say thank you, Marty, for
Thank you.
taking this on and leveraging
Amen.
your past experience and pulling this together, because
You're welcome.
you're clearly pulling from a wealth of knowledge, and I think these are far superior to the
I
previous
appreciate
project.
that.
Well, there you go.
By the way, if anybody's
easier.
wondering what kind of law we operate in, this is the Book of Illinois Library Law.
And it's very tiny
Very
print.
small font.
And it's small
Thin
print.
pages too.
Yeah, the standards really, yeah. Okay, well, if that's the comments for now, I've been making extensive notes here. I will rework these. This will actually be, I think I'll call it draft 5 to separate it from the rest of them.
4-point post.
Put dates
Yeah,
on them.
and yeah, I have been dating them, yeah.
Draft 5 for me.
And then we can circulate it again. And I guess then we would have to repost it with the revisions for next month, and then
Think about it.
hopefully vote
And
in
hopefully
June,
vote in June.
when I won't be here.
Well,
We should know
but
what's.
if we get through May without wanting to make any changes, theoretically, we will all feel the same in June.
Yeah.
What if I don't excuse Marty?
I'm going to be at a lecture in Alaska. Come on, Swap. I don't think I can get a signal there.
All right, yes, thank you again, thank Marty for,
You're very welcome.
all right.
I really appreciate all of the feedback and the collegiality with which the feedback was given.
All right, we are on to item number 10, the library director's report.
All right, we're gonna run through this really fast. We had to change our cleaning company because they quit. They broke our 3-year long-term contract that was supposed to go through January and are gone as of Sunday. We have a new company starting on Monday.
That's good.
They were losing money on this contract. They basically underbid it, like seriously underbid this contract because we were their first high traffic public building. This was a company that was used to cleaning offices with a limited number of people in them, not a high traffic public building. And so let's just say we're all, everybody's happier just walking away. And the company that we are going with also cleans the Gale Warden Public Library in Elgin and has for more than a decade with good recommendations, which I would put as a comparable kind of library to ours in the amount of traffic, being a larger public building. So we're very pleased to have them starting on Monday. The workroom project is completely done. Punch list is finished. We came in $43,000 under budget, which was fantastic. Ian Knorr, our building operations director, and Danny Barkowiak, thank you. Easy for me to say. One of our building operations monitors are at the Public Library Safety and Security Conference today and tomorrow, so that's fantastic. We're glad they're able to attend that training. And then I just want to say a very special thank you to Assistant Director Jen Rieski, who has been the person in charge of all of the focus groups that we've been doing since middle of last week and through tomorrow, and it has been quite the job to handle all of the myriad just physical details of the rooms and the setups and snacks and water and who's here and are all the things up on the wall and just all of the many, many details. So Jen, doing a bang up job. Thank you so much. And that's all. All right. That was rapid fire.
Great. We are on to item number 11, trustee comments and requests for information.
I just wanted to congratulate Dave on the beautiful article about him in the Daily Herald about 10 days ago. Looked at the paper, online, not the paper. And there was Dave's face in a lovely feature about all he's done for the Downers Grove community over the 2 or 3 years he's been involved. It was really nice. Good for him and everything.
Well, I often say you can run, but you can't hide, and they found me and they interviewed me extensively over the telephone, and then once in person. And I thought I was reading about somebody else, but when I read it very carefully, it was really quite accurate, and so I was rather proud.
I just thought it was
so thank you.
Pretty cool.
Thank you. I would also like to thank Marty for all her work on the bylaws. This is just amazing. And Jen, the most important thing for all of your efforts is apparently people have been showing up to the focus groups. And that's even better.
Yes.
Because we're going to get a good cross-section of the community for
Staff
these
is
things.
going to be really disappointed that we don't have leftovers for them.
So thank you for all that.
Yep.
And why don't we adjourn and take a quick tour of the...
I've got a couple things. But go ahead.
Just a quick point of clarification, tying back to the residents' comments. Are we still engaged with RGW Consulting?
Actually, our contract for the year 2 work did expire at the end of March. She did, for personal reasons, have to miss the March Equity Advisory Team meeting, so she did come to this month's Equity Advisory Team meeting in lieu. But we do not have any current contracts with her. She does some separate hourly coaching for a staff member for us, but that's about it.
And then just for clarification, at least this is my understanding, the current strategic planning process is not subordinate to the previous DEI strategic plan. It is an input to the strategic planning process.
And we have said that it may be folded into the strategic plan, or it may continue as a separate plan. That'll all be up to you when you vote on the new strategic plan.
And I will say that, and I'm not agreeing necessarily because I haven't discussed it with the resident at all, there are portions of that report that I find extremely and unnecessarily offensive, and that does not mean, so that I'm not misinterpreted, which has happened before, that I'm not supportive of DEI objectives. But there are portions of that report that I think were outrageous and unnecessarily divisive. And I personally, I want to make sure that that does not carry through to the strategic plan. There's good in there, but there's also some elements that I don't think are constructive or healthy. So I'll just leave it at that.
I have a couple punch lists real quick. Just a quick question, I guess, regarding the circulation statistics for March 2023. There was 11,000-ish self-checkouts versus like 33 staff desks, which is almost flipped from March 2022. So I was just wondering if there was like some issue with the self-checkout. Or am I just reading it wrong?
Oh, I think we might have flip-flopped. I think we may
Was it just the numbers?
I think the
Okay.
numbers got transposed.
I was like, did everyone not know how to do self-checkout? Like, what happened? Okay. All right, perfect.
Must
So
be us boomers.
I would
It's a
guess
sign.
that those numbers are
Everyone that likes to ask for help apparently came into the library in March. And then the rest of us, okay. All right, that was easy. I just want to thank everyone that participated in our focus groups. It is a lot of time out of people's personal schedules, and so just appreciate everyone that was involved. I'm very excited and encouraged, having sat through the board's strategic planning focus group. I'm very excited about the company we went with, and I'm really encouraged by what's to come next. I just wanted to thank the library and all the library workers at belated National Library Worker Day, which was yesterday. Just thank you again to our staff as usual for their incredible knowledge and customer service. A quick little shout out for the Downers Grove Public Library Foundation fundraisers this week. Tonight there is still time to get a drink of Foxtail. Tomorrow's Giamia, Friday's Panera. My daughter will be turning 13 with a Giamia dinner tomorrow night, so very excited about that. Thank you to the Children's Services for a lot of programming for spring break. We were out of town, but I was kind of bummed. There was some really good programming that I think my kids would have had a lot of fun with. And then the last kind of quick thing, I noticed in the last few months there's been a little bit of an uptick with some patron incidents involving our youth. So I just wanted to remind parents that are in the room, or grandparents, or people that have neighbors that fall into this demographic, just to remind them to be respectful in the library. It's disappointing when you're excited to have your own children go to the library and do schoolwork or hang out with friends, and then there's children that are disruptive to that experience or are disrespectful to our amazing staff. So I would love to see those numbers start going down. So that's it.
Just a very quick follow-on, if I may. Jen was very effective at badgering some of us on the board to suggest and recruit some people for some of the focus groups. And I met a little resistance just on time schedules and things like that, but I have had several people just in the last 3 days come back to me and say, boy, I'm glad that I went to that focus group. I really feel like I contributed something to Downers Grove. So